He was 82, and nobody came to his birthday at exactly 6 o'clock in the evening. Robert placed the plates on the dining table. One plate was for him, the other was for someone who wasn't coming. Robert was 82 years old. He lived alone in a small, quiet house at the end of a street in Ohio, and every year, on his birthday, he did the same thing. He cooked too much food. He bought a small birthday cake. He put 2 glasses on the table, and he waited not because he was sure someone would come, but because some part of his heart still believed they might. That morning, Robert woke up before sunrise. He looked at the calendar hanging beside his bed. August 20th, his birthday. He smiled quietly, then he whispered, 82. He sat on the edge of his bed for a moment. His knees hurt, his back hurt, but there was something else that hurt much more, the silence. Robert walked into the kitchen and made himself a cup of coffee. Then he looked at his phone. No messages. He waited a few seconds, still nothing. He put the phone down. It's early, he said to himself. They'll call. He believed that at least for a little while. By 10 o'clock, there was still no call. At noon, nothing. At 2 in the afternoon, Robert started preparing dinner. He made the meal his family used to love: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh bread. He even made his wife's old apple pie recipe. His wife, Margaret, had been gone for 11 years. She was the one who had always remembered his birthday. Every year, she would wake him up and say, "Happy birthday, old man," and Robert would laugh. He missed that voice more than he could explain. Margaret had left him many things: her photographs, her wedding ring, her recipes, and thousands of memories. But the thing Robert missed most was having someone to say goodnight to. At 4 o'clock, Robert checked his phone again. Still nothing. Then he received a notification. His heart jumped, but it was only an advertisement. Robert stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then he smiled sadly. Maybe tomorrow. He put the phone back in his pocket. At 5:30, he showered and put on his nicest shirt. It was the blue shirt Margaret had bought him years ago. He stood in front of the mirror. He adjusted his collar. Then he looked at himself for a moment. He didn't recognize the man staring back. The young man who had once carried his children on his shoulders was now an old man holding on to memories. At 6 o'clock, Robert placed the food on the table, to plates. To forks, 2 glasses. And 1 small birthday cake. He lit a single candle. Then he sat down. He waited. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. 30 minutes. Nothing. At 6:45, he picked up his phone. He opened his daughter's contact. Her name was Emily. Robert stared at her name. His thumb moved toward the call button. Then stopped. He didn't want to bother her. She had a job, a husband. Children. A busy life. Robert whispered. She probably forgot. Then he looked toward the empty chair. No, he corrected himself. She probably remembered. She's just busy. At 7 o'clock, he finally called his son. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then voicemail. Robert listened to the recording. "Hey, you've reached Daniel. Leave a message." Robert smiled. "Hi, son." He paused. "It's Dad." Another pause. "I just wanted to say." He looked at the birthday cake. "I hope you're doing well." He almost said, "It's my birthday," but he did in single quotes T. Instead, he said, "Call me when you get a chance." Then he hung up. The house became quiet again. Robert looked at the food. It was getting cold. He slowly stood up. He carried 1 plate back to the kitchen. Then he stopped. He looked at the second plate. For a moment, he couldn't move. He picked it up and put it back in the cupboard. Then he returned to the table. He sat alone. And ate his birthday dinner. At 8:15, Robert cut the cake. He cut 1 small piece. Then he looked at the rest. He didn't have much of an appetite. He blew out the candle. The room became dark. Robert whispered, "Happy birthday, Margaret." Then he laughed softly because he knew how strange that sounded. His wife had been gone for 11 years, but tonight, she was the only person he could think of. After dinner, Robert washed the dishes. He turned off the kitchen light. Then he walked into the living room. On the wall was an old family photograph. Robert stood in the middle. Margaret stood beside him. And between them were their 2 children. Emily and Daniel. They were young, maybe 8 and 10 years old. Robert stared at that photograph for a long time. Then he whispered, "I did my best." His eyes filled with tears. "I really did." He remembered working the jobs when the children were young. He remembered sleeping only 4 hours a night. He remembered fixing broken bicycles, paying school bills, driving them to soccer practice, sitting beside them when they were sick. He remembered every little thing, and he didn't regret any of it, not even once, because they were his. Children died his whole world, but somewhere along the way, life changed. The children grew up. They moved away. They built families of their own, and Robert understood. He knew children had their own lives. He never wanted to become a burden. So whenever they were busy, he said, "It's okay." Whenever they couldn't visit, he said, "Don't worry about me." Whenever they forgot to call, he said, "I know you're busy." And little by little, everyone believed him. They believed Robert was okay, because Robert always said he was okay. But the truth was, he wasn't at 9:30 that night. Robert went upstairs. He changed into his pajamas. Before going to bed, he checked his phone one last time. One missed notification, a text message. Robert opened it. It was from his daughter, Emily. His heart started beating faster. The message said, "Dad, I'm sorry. Today was crazy. I'll call you tomorrow." Robert stared at those words. Then he smiled. He typed, "It's okay, sweetheart." He was about to send it, but then he stopped. He deleted the message. Instead, he typed, "Thank you," and sent it. He placed the phone on the nightstand. Then he turned off the light. Robert closed his eyes, but he couldn't sleep because there was something he hadn't told his children, something he had kept hidden for months. Something that might change everything. The next morning at 7:12, Robert's phone rang. It was Emily. "Dad?" Robert answered, "Good morning, sweetheart." "Dad, I'm so sorry about yesterday." Robert smiled. "It's okay." "No, Dad, it's not okay." She became quiet. Then she said, "Dad, did you have a good birthday?" Robert looked toward the window. Sunlight was coming through the curtains. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to protect her feelings. He wanted to say everything was fine. But for the first time in years, Robert told the truth. "No." There was silence. Emily whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" Robert took a deep breath. "Because I didn't want you to feel guilty." His voice started shaking. "I know you have your own life. I know you're busy. I know I'm not young anymore." But he stopped. Then he said the words he had been afraid to say. "I don't need much, Emily. I don't need money. I don't need gifts. I don't need anything expensive. I just wanted my family." Emily started crying. Robert heard her crying through the phone. Then she said, "Dad, why didn't you tell us you were lonely?" Robert looked at the family photograph. And answered, "Because I spent my whole life teaching you how to be strong." He wiped a tear from his cheek. "I forgot to tell you that sometimes it's okay to need someone." There was a long silence. Then Emily said, "Dad, stay home." Robert frowned. "Why? Just stay home." 20 minutes later, Robert heard a car outside, then another. He slowly walked toward the window. His hands began to shake. A car door opened. Then another. Robert couldn't believe what he was seeing. Emily got out. Behind her was Daniel, and behind them were his grandchildren. Robert stood frozen. Then someone knocked on the door. 3 gentle knocks. Robert walked toward it. He opened the door. Emily stood there crying. Daniel was holding a birthday cake. And his youngest granddaughter was holding a small paper bag. She ran toward Robert. "Grandpa." Robert dropped his hand from the door. His granddaughter hugged him, and Robert closed his eyes. He held her tightly for a few seconds. He couldn't speak. Then Daniel stepped forward. "Dad." Robert looked at his son. Daniel's eyes were filled with tears. "I'm sorry." Robert shook his head. "Come here." Daniel hugged his father. And for the first time in many years, Robert felt like his house wasn't empty anymore. They walked into the kitchen. On the table was the leftover birthday cake from the night before. Emily saw it. She looked at the single candle. Then she looked at her father. "Dad." Robert smiled. "I knew you'd come." Emily started crying again. "No, Dad." She held his hand. "You shouldn't have had to wait." That sentence broke something inside Robert. Not because it hurt, but because someone finally understood. They sat together at the table. For generations of memories seemed to fill the room. There was laughter. There were tears. There were stories. And for the first time in a very long time, Robert didn't have to pretend he was okay. That afternoon, his granddaughter asked him, "Grandpa, what did you wish for when you blew out your candle?" Robert looked at her. Then he smiled. "I wished for this." She looked around. "For us?" Robert nodded. "For you." The little girl hugged him again, and Robert whispered, "That's all I've ever wanted." That night, after everyone went home, Robert stood at the front door and watched their cars disappear down the street. He wasn't sad. For the first time in years, he was smiling. He walked back into the kitchen. On the table were 4 empty plates. Robert looked at them. Then he whispered, "Thank you, Margaret." He looked at her photograph on the wall. "I think you would have liked today." He turned off the kitchen light, and before going upstairs, he placed his phone on the table. A new message appeared from Emily. It said, "Dad, we're coming again Sunday." Robert read it twice. Then he smiled, because sometimes an elderly person doesn't need the world. They don't need expensive gifts. They don't need a perfect life. Sometimes they just need someone to knock on the door, sit beside them, and say, "You're not alone." So if you still have a parent, a grandparent, an elderly neighbor, or someone who lives alone, don't wait for a special occasion. Call them, visit them. Sit with them, because one day you may wish you had. And sometimes the phone call you think can wait until tomorrow is the phone call someone is desperately waiting for tonight.